Hi there, it's Dr. Paul Donovan, and this video is an association to a written blog I made which discussed the power of undiscussables in teams and how it is that they actually do erode team performance. And that is what they do. They erode team performance. So what are undiscussables? Undiscussables are topics that teams find difficult to get to because they are threatening in some way or create anxiety within the group. So if you are in a team and you're discovering that there are certain topics which just always pop off the end of the agenda that you never are quite getting to, I'd like to suggest to you that it might be more than time that is at work. It could be a secret decision your group is making around not getting to certain items because there is a subtle or not so subtle anxiety associated with the topic. I want to suggest to you that especially if you're an executive team, but really any teams, usually those topics that have the anxiety around them are amongst the most important for your group to discuss. But at present, what's happening, you might find that even if you approach a topic like this in your meeting, even if it sort of comes up obliquely, that somehow or other your conversation kind of migrates around the topic and then continues. And that's a very interesting maneuver that the group is doing. It's actually very clever. You see, the group is organizing themselves to migrate around the topic because there is a collective sense of unease about the topic. They're not discussing that they're making that maneuver, since that would call the game. So it's a non-discussed avoidance. But nevertheless, they avoid around the topic and then we just keep going on our merry way. And so while that central topic there remains undiscussed, your group's growth is at risk. The competence of your meetings is very definitely at risk. It's highly likely that there are important strategic conversations embedded in that undiscussable topic. And if it continues to happen, it breeds malaise. It breeds a sense of disengagement. At one level, participants in your meetings will know that there are topics that are too hard to get to, that I can't raise, and that those topics become increasingly important, but there is a sense of apathy and malaise, and then that spreads around outside of your meetings into everyday conversations, and it begins to be a cultural problem within your organization. So if you want to make a cultural shift in your organization, start by looking at the meetings, the very engine room of your organizational culture, and pausing to consider, what is it that we are not talking about? What is it that we are not talking about? So the hint I'd like to give you in this video is if you have rank in that room, then you have a special accountability to assist your groups to talk about potentially threatening conversations or topics. If you are the boss, if you have rank, then I would ask you to consider carefully what you are doing that is actually making the problem worse. How are you helping the group to navigate away? When is it that you sense a pregnant pause or a problematic, what's sometimes called a hotspot, laughs or gaps, where you as the manager have accountability to slow down the room and invite further comment? So at that moment, you as the manager will be at a very real personal edge because you won't know what's going to happen next. You're moving out of familiar zone into the unfamiliar zone. You are moving out of the known to the unknown. That is the juncture of leadership. When you do that as a boss, and when you do that when you have rank and you're prepared to let your meeting conversations move from the unknown to the known, from the familiar to the unfamiliar, you are showing profound and far-reaching leadership. It is the leader within us explores the unfamiliar territory. The leader within us supports your teams to go into that unfamiliar territory. So it's highly likely that when you go into the unfamiliar territory, you as the leader may receive feedback that you've been protecting yourself against. So I want to encourage you to lean in when you sense that hot spot, that quiet hot spot that indicates there's some avoidance happening, pause, slow down, share your observation that you suspect there may be something that might be more that could be said on this topic. Wait, invite comments and ask for others to comment. And then ask, what learnings are we making here? Is there something we need to hear in this? That's just the very first step. As the boss, you have a special accountability to do this. Actually, in many cases, bosses are adding to the list of non-discussable topics, and they're doing so relatively unwittingly. Here's one hint how bosses tend to do it. Bosses feel more freedom to vent their frustration. Their rank gives them freedom of expression. So if you are the boss, then one of the things you might find yourself doing is saying, God, haven't we got that report yet? Or what do you mean they only recommended this? I'm sure there's other things. So you will be expressing your frustration, but the difficulty is nobody else in that room will experience the same freedom of expression that you do. And they certainly won't feel any freedom of expression, or mostly, to express their frustration with you being the boss. That's even more tricky. So your freedom of expression can ultimately lead to the silencing of others. They won't feel safe, they won't feel confident, it gets harder to contradict you if you're sharing something with strong feeling behind it, and you will in fact be unwittingly creating undiscussable topics by your freedom of frustration and venting. Of course, one of the undiscussable topics is your habit to vent in meetings. That in itself becomes a real point of angst for others in the room who do not have that freedom and who may be unwilling to raise their issue with you that you are doing it. So even in venting, believe me, that's already an undiscussable. So I so wish you well. We'd love to hear from you. This is a central area for leadership. Building collective leadership of teams where the person with rank is able to lean into where there is pregnant pauses and enable a far richer discussion on the topics which have been skillfully avoided by your team. Much more to say on this, but I hope that you found these few minutes helpful. This is something we love to talk about and I've researched in for many years, and this is just a few things that I hope helps you practically. Thanks everybody. Looking forward to the next one. Bye.